Pay attention, everyone. Get your notes. You said, date knowing your worth, not date someone who was better than your ex.
I didn't say that. That's really good.
Unpack all of that. Lay it on the bed. Lay it all out. You have some food in your...
I know, it's chocolate.
It's on your top lip.
No, it's not.
Yeah, there you go. Guys, welcome back.
Welcome back. I don't know.
What the hell?
I'm just trying to mimic you in a softer...
We are doing our home series, just not on the couch.
But at home.
But at home, in our dining room chairs, trying to make this all work. It's hard out here in a 2-bedroom condo.
Yeah.
But nonetheless,
Here we are.
we are brought to you today by our very first sponsor of Who Can Relate. Playa Davis is sponsoring the show.
Always sponsors the show.
No, he used some of his modeling money
Oh.
to pay for some of the equipment. Chicago had one modeling job. It was $300 for like 2 hours for some like home security thing. I was walking him. I didn't even get paid. He got paid. Anyways. Okay. Today, so I don't have to edit a lot right now. Today, we're going to be talking about dating in your 30s.
Not 20s. 30s.
30s.
A little bit of 20s, though. We'll touch on it.
That's what she said. What do you mean in your 20s? A little bit in your 20s?
Yeah, we'll touch on a little bit of dating in your 20s. The difference.
Yeah, the difference. Yes. And we're going to be talking about pros and cons and personally why we believe there is such a benefit of dating in your 30s as opposed to your 20s. So,
Actually, I wouldn't say that.
oh, well, save it for after I introduce you. I have your podcast guest, favorite podcast guest, Shannon Davis.
I sound like I need to come out in a football uniform.
Yeah, run through the tape.
Stop.
I feel like a lot of people don't know your name is Shannon.
There it is. Now they know.
Now you know. Okay, so let's talk about what would you say are some of the pros of dating in your 30s?
The pros for dating in your 30s.
That's what I said.
Say that again. Well, I'm trying to reiterate your question.
You don't have to.
Okay, let me start over. I would say experience.
Yeah.
Knowing your worth. Learning from your mistakes. Valuing your own time.
Yes. And valuing their time too, because you don't want to waste anyone's time.
Yeah.
What else you got?
Stop shaking.
Oh, you're looking at the
Yeah.
sheet. Here you go.
I said and just knowing who you are, what you want, what you deserve, which it kind of ties in with self-worth.
Yeah. And not just giving up all the work that you had done and the person you created and established now in your 30s, not just giving that up to anyone. Because I'm sure we've all been there where you have this new and improved version of yourself and you give it to someone who just steps on it all kinds of ways and rubs it in the mud and now you're back to square one kind of thing. So I think in your 30s, you are definitely more selective with who you give this new and improved version of yourself to. And a lot of the things that we're talking about, self-worth, experience, getting your value system down, etc. Not to say you can't get that in your 20s, right? But for some reason in your 30s, you're easily able to have this as more of like a concrete foundation. You know, in your 20s, you're a little bit more flexible, maybe because you think you have a lot of time, ahead of you and rightfully so. Or maybe it's not you, it's them. You keep telling yourself that because you're in denial. But in your 30s, you can take accountability, you can take ownership, and again, just really understand the severity of a relationship and what it embodies. Not just the idea's fun, oh, I want this, cute or cool love story. No. Like in your 30s, hopefully you're figuring out the life story, the life partner. I know for men, we have a hard time of, as I said last week, thinking in the long term. And because of that, or I said 2 weeks ago, because of that, I was so fixated personally on just in the now, right now. I was also putting a lot of pressure on the woman to make me happy, to complete me. And that's in large part because I didn't know who I was. In your 20s, maybe you can relate. You didn't really know who you were in your 20s. Or maybe you did.
Yeah, so I think you're right. I think it is difficult, and part of the reason is I think we lack experience, and through experience we develop insight as to what we want. And that's why I think earlier when you opened and you were like, let me tell you why it's more benefiting to date in your 30s versus your 20s. I feel like it is still very benefiting to date in your 20s, because that is where you are developing your self-worth and just who you are as a person. And without experience, you can't know those things. You can't learn from the mistakes. You need that.
So that's an interesting point, because I think a lot of women who are in their 20s right now, as I've seen in the comments, like, well, what are we supposed to do then? Are we supposed to just not date a guy who's in his 20s? But you're saying, which I agree, you should still date. As I've said before in the last 2 weeks, just date understanding that and managing your expectations. It's probably not going to be your life partner. Gain the experience, gain the good times, the bad times, 'cause those are the lessons, and have fun.
It's no different than like having a job versus a career. Just because you're not going to be in your long-term career doesn't mean you'll never have a job. You should have a job. You should have many jobs throughout your life, and especially at a young age, because that's what helps you determine what you eventually want to do.
And what you don't want to do, for sure. And what your value is for what to ask for a raise now.
What you're good at, what you're not good at, all
totally.
of that.
So that's perfect, because you wrote down dating in your 20s versus dating in your 30s could very much be similar to how we spend money in our 20s versus our 30s.
Yes.
Let's talk about that.
So I did notice a lot of people going in about the comments about 20s versus 30s.
Yeah.
And I think that when I use that analogy of dating in your 20s versus your 30s could be very similar to how we spend money. How we spend money in our 20s is not how we spend money in our 30s. And I think that part of that is like in our 20s, we're not really thinking long term. We're like, this is fun. We're in the moment, which is great. And you make a lot of mistakes financially. And then your 30s come and you're more thinking about the long term goals, whether it is you want to buy a house, you want to start saving, and you're not spending your money as stupidly as you would in your 20s.
It's the quality of which now you're spending your money on in your 30s, just like the quality of time you're putting in to the quality of people in your 30s.
And that's why I say that it's if I'm investing my money in something that initially I started doing that to have a return come back, because it's an investment.
Sure.
But if I'm not getting that return and there's no value in my investment, am I going to make the excuse to keep my investment there?
Right.
Or am I going to pull out? So if I think like that financially, why wouldn't I think like that with myself? Because I value myself as much as I value my money, if not more.
Sure. Exactly. As it should be.
Yeah.
So based on your value system and knowing your self-worth, one of the things that you said earlier today when we were outlining this episode, you said something. We were in the shower together this morning. And told you I'm trying to have a baby before the year's over. And we were talking about...
Transition.
I know. I'm getting better at this. We were talking about how dating someone who is aware of your self-worth. And along those lines, you said something that was great, which I actually wrote down. You said, date knowing your worth, absolutely, because you don't want to date someone who is just better than your ex.
That is so good.
Unpack it all.
Did I say that?
Break it down, explain it, say it louder for the people in the back. Because let me just tell you, one of my exes, I remember back when I was a master manipulator, You know those master classes that they teach?
You taught?
I had the manipulation class and the gaslighting class.
I believe it.
That was me. If everyone's like, oh, he looks familiar. Anyways, here's what I want to say about that. I remember when we first started dating and I was doing what I would consider quote unquote normal. I was opening the door for her. I was calling her back. I was texting her back. I was making plans. I would never ghost her. I would, be transparent about things. And I remember she was just like blown away. And I was like, man, like her exes were trash. This will be easy. What I mean? Like this is a layup for me now, back to the manipulation and gaslighting phase. But it's so important to understand that actually I'm gonna let you say it. You gave me a couple numbers analogy, which is hilarious. So just explain to the people that if your self-worth is a 10, as we all would like to think it is, and we worked our way up to that.
If you don't know your self-worth.
Okay.
And your ex was a 3, it would be easy for you to date a 4. It would be a 4 walks by and you're like, oh,
better than the 3 I had.
And, there's so much more. Even like your ex probably was like, oh, he's opening doors, but there's so much more to being a gentleman than opening doors.
Right.
But she was like, that was just one thing that her ex didn't do.
Exactly.
Along with however many other things. But I think that when you don't know your self-worth, you can date a 3, you could date a 2, you could date a 4, and even when a 5 walks by, you're like, oh my God, this is the best thing.
You almost doubled up.
The best thing since
sliced bread. Why'd you tee me up?
I don't know, because I remember you were the first person I ever heard.
Best thing. You never heard that?
You would reference yourself as that.
I would reference myself. Oh,
and
Jesus.
I thought that was like,
I told you. Master class, boy. When? Oh, God.
Yeah.
Woo. Okay.
But anyway.
Jesus.
Okay,
got a
we're back
big
together.
ego. Okay. So yes. So it's knowing your worth and understanding that, he may be better than your ex or she may be better than your ex, but that doesn't mean that this is your one.
However, if you know your self-worth, and I say this to everybody, if you love yourself and you know your self-worth, you will be able to easily walk away from any relationship that is not serving to you.
Yeah.
And just knowing what you bring to the table and having that confidence in who you are as a person. If somebody is not appreciating that in you, it's like, bye.
Time to go.
Okay.
And you'll leave with no regret.
No regrets.
You'll have all the closure you need because you know that who you are and you love yourself so much.
You won't take it personal. It's just, it would be at that point a compatibility, or the person is just undeserving of you.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
So let me ask you a question. Moving right along. Doing a great job, babe.
That was so much better.
Doing a great job. Little do people know that was like the 17th take. Just kidding. Anyways, I have a question for you. Do you think you knew who you were in your 20s?
I think I did. However, I didn't know how to navigate my feelings and emotions.
Okay. Well, I asked that question because I damn sure didn't know who I was in my 20s.
Yeah. Did you think you did?
I don't know if I thought I did. I think it was a matter of like, I got time to figure it out. Like that was in the back of my mind. Or I was just, this is probably the only time I've ever really been patient with myself I remember in my 20s just being like, I think I have all the answers. If I'm being honest with myself, I don't. I think I know what I want to do with my life. But if I'm being honest, I'm sure it'll just present itself when it's ready. And so all accumulating to, I just knew I had time. Now in my 30s, I definitely know who I am. And more importantly, I feel more comfortable with who I am and in my own skin than ever before. That's, I think, a big difference between 20s and 30s. And correct me if I'm wrong, probably mainly for women.
Yeah.
As opposed to men.
Absolutely.
Yeah, let's talk about it.
I think for women, we've always been in touch with our feelings and emotions, and we're very in tune and all of that stuff. But I think we don't always know what is causing our feelings and emotions. And I think that discovery and that navigating through and finding out what my emotions are coming from, triggered by, or the past traumas I've had, whether it was a past relationship or childhood.
Sure.
I think is really important. And that is really what helped lead me to the woman I am today.
Well, another thing for me in my 20s was I was so fixated on finding my soulmate, finding my wife, finding whatever definition I had of a life partner, finding my life partner in my 20s. And you said something again today that I wrote down. Just read right here, honey, what you said.
Instead of trying to find the one in your 20s, put that time and focus into finding yourself.
Now, that's probably going to be hard to hear for a lot of people out there.
Yeah, but it's true.
But here on Who Can Relate, we shoot you straight
Yeah.
and tell it like it is.
Yeah.
Put that on a t-shirt. Okay. Instead
It's
of trying to find the one, quote unquote, in your 20s, put that time, energy, focus, and effort into finding yourself.
The quicker you know yourself, the faster you will actually find the one who's truly meant for you.
It's easier to weed out the ones that are not meant for you.
Absolutely.
I agree with you.
You know your values.
Yeah.
You know your worth. You have self-love.
And you know your love languages.
Yes.
In my 20s, first of all, I didn't read in my 20s, okay? There's a lot of guys out there who read in their 20s. This ain't for you. I didn't read in my 20s. I damn sure wasn't reading relationship books in my 20s. I thought I could write the relationship book in my 20s. And so my whole point is like, I didn't realize what my love languages were. I didn't know what I needed, how I needed to be loved rather, and what I needed to be loved. And then to fathom that how and what I need for love could be different for how you need
Giving
and want
and
receiving love. What?
Yeah.
That would have been rocket science to me back then. Now in my 30s, I realized not only is that common sense for the most part, but it's essential to be in a healthy relationship, in our case, a healthy marriage. What I need for my love language is different. Love language is different than what you need. And that's okay. That's the beauty of getting to know your partner. But these would be like, I'm happily married. I'm not going anywhere. But let me just tell you, if we were to get divorced, if I was out here dating right now, those would be some of the first questions I would ask. I would date, obviously, a girl who's in her 30s, a woman who's in her 30s. And I would ask her, maybe not on the first date, but eventually, what are your love languages? Do you know how you want to be loved?
Why would that be a first question?
Well, I mean, it would be one of the questions I would ask, just because it would tell me where she was in tune with herself, right? Because if you told, like, let's say, perfect. Let's keep this in-house, okay? If we're not married and I see you, and after spitting all kinds of game and telling you how beautiful you are and how your eyes...
Oh my God.
I would ask you at a certain point in time in the dating phase, do you know your love languages? And if you told me if you said what are love languages, I'd be like, oh, okay. Because if you don't know, how am I supposed to know? I can find out eventually, but we'll save a lot of time, a lot of energy, and a lot of effort if you knew and if I knew, if we were both aware of that. You said you met someone recently who didn't know their love languages and they were in their 30s.
No, I think she's in her late 20s.
Okay. Either way, because women mature faster than men. So like what, 28 for women, would you say is like 33 for men, basically? Give or take? Just say yes for the sake of editing.
Sure, yes.
Okay, great. So with that being said, it's fascinating to me when people don't know their love languages. But in your 20s, you probably don't.
No. I do feel like this generation, I said this before, I feel like this generation is becoming more advanced than what our generation was.
Totally. But you can lead a horse to water, but
You can't make a horse drink it.
But you can't make him drink it. But hopefully, if men and women are watching this and they're in their 20s, take your notes.
Take your test. Find out what your love languages are.
Find out what your love languages are. That's a hack. Okay. So love languages for the win. Now, I said in the last week's episode about this click for men. And as soon as they turn 30, it's like, it might as well come with the birthday candles. There's a click that happens. I can't really explain it. Women, I tried to explain this to a woman. We were like going back and forth with voice notes, and it was all love, but she kept saying like, I disagree. And I was like, you disagree with the click that men have? How would you know? Anyways, the point is there a click for women when you guys turn 30?
Define what your click is for you.
Well, as I just said, I don't really know how to define it, but I just think it's a situation where everything makes sense. Everything slows down for us. We value things differently. We value time. We value our energy. We value who we surround ourselves with differently. We also realize that we don't have this endless amount of time that we think we do in our 20s. We value money differently. We reassess where we are in our life with our friend circle. We reassess where we are with our money, our job, our career. We reassess where we are in our relationship game. So as Rome so beautifully articulated, he had to change his word. No, he had to change the way he felt about the word relationship. That happens in your 30s for men. It happens when you turn 30, because it's like in your 20s for us, it's quantity over quality. Hey man, how many girls you got? How's the team looking? You got a starting 5? You got some bench players? Yeah, I got a whole roster of 12. That's how it is in your 20s. In your 30s, you're like, I'm tired of this, man. Like, I'm trying to settle down for just one. I want the quality over quantity. That's what I mean by the click. And there's a lot more, but just for sake purposes here, that's what I mean by the click for men in their 30s. Is there some type of click for women when they turn 30?
I don't know. I think the click happens when you finally are aligned with just who your true self is. Okay. And you finally have, so whether that happens I feel like for me, it happened in my late 20s. Okay. It came from just all the work and the navigating that I was doing within myself. Sure. So I think once I was able to like turn that light on where I was like, oh my God, this makes sense. Like now I know what I want. Now I know what I deserve. Now I know my self-worth. And that was like a click for me. Okay. That makes sense. I think too, the other thing I'll add for the click for men is, as I've just so recently found out, when you are moving without purpose and without intention, it's a struggle for men. And unfortunately, it's a struggle for everyone around that man, including your partner, which is the closest thing. It is essential for us to move in purpose, to figure out what our purpose is, what our calling is, and then to move towards it. Without it, there is a void and a feeling of emptiness that is miserable. I just call it what it is. And there's nothing you can do about that to help me find it. It's like, unfortunately, that's another thing that happens when men turn 30. So we are pro still dating in your 20s. Yeah. I think what I would say is like, don't ever allow attraction to outweigh substance and compatibility. See, honey, but that's a grown woman in your 30s answer. Would you have said that in your 20s? Maybe. Full of, if I walked down the street, you should have seen your boy at 26, babe. I was in my prime. If I would have walked down the street with my shirt off, now I got like a 3.5 pack because of quarantine. If I would have walked, I mean, I did definitely allow that to happen, but I was not trying to make that person my husband. Well, that's what we're talking about right now. I'm saying I'm saying date with the 20s. Intention of marriage in your 20s. Yeah. So I'm just saying my advice would be just try to keep that at the forefront. Like don't allow attraction to outweigh substance and compatibility. You knew that at 20 something? I mean, I knew it. I didn't follow it all the time. Exactly. That's what I'm saying. I'm saying that's an evolved woman answer. Okay. Welcome to the home series. This happens all the time. I'll say something and Shay will go all around. She'll make a U-turn on the street just to pass the same thing I saw and told her about. Or we watch a TV show and you have one. I'll have a whole different experience and oh my God. Okay. Anyways, I think that was heavily catered to people in their 20s, men and women, who were saying, hey, here are the pros for 30s. And now with this knowledge and this evolvedness. Is evolvedness a word? I don't know. I'm going to roll with it. Fact check me, everybody. I won't take it personally.
the evolvedness that comes with your 30s, we're just letting you guys know. We're basically speaking to our younger selves.
Mm-hmm.
Now, let's get into, because again, I think that was primarily for the 20-somethings. I think we did a good job of putting ourselves back in those shoes as we once were, sadly. Here we are in our 30s now. And I want to talk about, how is it for a woman to date in her 30s, knowing you want a family, you want to be married, and trying to balance that, not putting pressure on the guy to fulfill all of that. You don't want to ask him on the first date, like, what's your game plan? Because my internal clock for babies is ticking, kind of thing. Like, how is that for a woman?
I think again, it kind of goes back to just like having done work in yourself and being so comfortable and confident in yourself that you can be more assertive with your wants and needs. Not necessarily that you have to do it on the first day, but if you're living true to yourself, you're going to feel comfortable saying what you want, whether it's kids, whether it's whatever it is.
Okay.
And I think like, and if that person doesn't want the same things, it's okay. That person's just not for you.
Yeah. Cause I mean, I can't speak on behalf of women in their 30s, but as a man in my 30s, when we met, I was basically the pressure woman, essentially. I was asking you, do you want kids? Do you want a family? Have you ever considered living in Chicago? Because I back then was so, unfortunately, fearful of wasting my time. You know, I know you love my famous quote of, you love it.
I hate it.
I don't fear commitment.
I fear wasting my time.
They can't hear you, babe. They're driving in the car right now. They're folding laundry. They can't hear you.
Okay, go.
They're like turning up their iPhones to hear you whisper. So I'll say it again. I don't fear commitment.
I fear wasting my time.
There you go. For everybody driving, doing laundry, running. Appreciate you guys. So I ask all of that, like I said, because I was, you know, maybe a lot of women out here in their 30s. I was asking because I was so fearful of, you know, thinking I was going to waste my time and knowing that the next girl that I was going to be with, I was going to give it my absolute all. I was going to put that work in that I knew I needed to in my 20s, and I skated by without needing to do it. And it was so hard for me to trust the process. It was hard for me to really just kind of sit back and let everything unfold. But you're saying, as a woman, trust your process. Trust all the work that you put in to get your self-worth, to get your value, to know who you are, to know what you don't want. And that'll make things easier.
And be confident in who you are and what you want. And don't be afraid to not voice who you are and what you want. That's the thing that girls do in their 20s.
That's so important.
Is let's say if they are dating somebody that knows kind of doesn't want kids, they'll avoid bringing that topic up no matter how much they want kids, because they're just trying to keep the relationship.
Exactly.
Versus a woman in her 30s is a little bit more assertive.
Because she has her self-worth.
And she's confident.
In check.
And she's okay to walk away from stuff that is not serving or not meeting her requirements.
I think that's so important, because the women that I have talked to here since the show had started, a lot of the common thread is they are fearful of asking for what they want in their partner. And what advice would you give as a woman to these women to feel confident and not be hesitant to ask for what they want?
I think the women that are hesitant to ask is because they have yet to reach what their self-worth is, and they don't have the confidence. So until you can find that within yourself, you're always going to be afraid to ask and be assertive with what you want.
Okay. Ladies, hope you took that gem of a note.
I mean, well, yeah, I was just going to say, like, a perfect example for that is great of a man you see in front of you right here,
or listening to.
You see he's doing the work. You see he has everything that, you know, a lot of people would want in their man, right? You get DMs, you're flooded with them.
whoa. Explain that a little bit more.
I mean,
someone's folding laundry. Like, did she just say he's got DMs from flooded from women?
I mean, people come to you because they look up to you in a sense of the man that you are today, right?
Yes.
So going back to when I first started dating you, I was so evolved in who I was, and I knew my worth, that there was a split moment that we had where I would have been okay to walk away from you because I knew that you were not on the level that I needed you to be on because
Right.
I knew my self-worth. So if you hadn't come back correct, I would have been like, boy, bye.
That's important because unfortunately, the women who are hesitant, and the men too, let me just say this, I'll speak from that. The men who are afraid to have the conversation, this is the difference. Women are afraid to ask for what they want if they're not secure within their self-worth and their value system. On the flip side, men who are becoming aware of their self-worth and value system, they're afraid of having that uncomfortable, probably heartbreaking conversation with the woman of, I love you, but I'm not in love with you. I think we've grown apart. I think we're moving in different directions, et cetera, et cetera. This relationship is no longer serving me. It can't be serving you, right? We have to let this go. We have to end this. A lot of men are very scared to have that conversation.
Why?
I mean, it was hard for me because I didn't want to hurt her. I didn't want to break her heart. And then when I laid out the factors and the pros and cons, I'm like, as I said in these last couple episodes, that I was going to make her cry regardless. If this is how I feel, if I feel like, you know what, this isn't working anymore, we need to end this, I was going to make her cry. I then thought it's worse to make her cry later, 10 years from now, when we have children and we're married and now we're a broken home, than it is to make her cry today, right here, right now. So that was my thought process, but I don't know if a lot of guys had that, thought process, and maybe even women too. Maybe it's hard for you guys to have that conversation. If you see, let's say you've been with someone for, 5, 8, 10 years, and you start to fall out of love. You start to grow apart. Maybe now it's the woman who feels that way. Have you ever been in a situation like that before? Or if you haven't, if you could put yourself in those shoes, why do you think it'd be hard for a woman to have those conversations?
I mean, I have been in that position before, and I think that's a tough conversation to have with anybody, no matter what side you're on.
Sure.
I think, especially depending how many years have been invested, regardless if you fell out of love with somebody, you still deeply care about that person and their feelings. So it's never an easy conversation to have.
But would you agree it's easier to have it the sooner the better once you've had your mind made up?
But I also think that it's like that also goes back to just making sure you're getting into relationships for the right reasons. So you don't have to have those uncomfortable conversations.
Exactly.
Because if you would have been true to yourself prior to some of those relationships, you probably never would have gotten into those relationships and never had a heart that you had to break.
Yeah. Unfortunately, sorry, let that marinate because there's so much truth in that, unfortunately. But it took me trial and error. It took me a lot of moments of realization and a lot of uncomfortableness to sit within myself, and then knowing I had to put this woman through.
And I think that is actually what you, as unfortunate as it was for her, it's almost what you needed to grow and have the experience to get to where you are now. Yeah.
I mean, part of the reason why I ended up getting to where I was when I met you, and I keep saying this, is because I kept thinking I could take the same me into a new relationship and expect it to go differently. And I realized after time that that's not the right equation. And the other thing is I had to take the hard look in the mirror and realize that all of these women, my favorite analogy.
If I sat them all at a table.
At a round table.
So they
can see themselves.
They would all have the same things to say about me. So what does that say about me? I am the common denominator.
I am the problem. And when I realized that...
I think I actually told you that.
Nah. I was saying that before you, honey.
No, I think I did.
Sadly, I was saying that before you.
Well, I remember the analogy of the round table thing.
Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, that was it for me, and I was just tired of it, and I knew that at that point it wasn't always the woman that I kept pointing the finger at. It actually was me in large part. So, do you have anything else? to add, love?
For dating in your 30s?
Yeah, I really want to get into trying to help the people who are listening right now in their 30s. I want trying to give more to them.
I think just the other thing that we didn't touch on earlier is once you're able to know your worth and have the confidence and self-love you need in yourself, and dating in your 30s and you meet somebody, things just move a lot faster. If you meet somebody that also is, you know, vibrating the same.
Like us?
Yeah. Or the work we put in.
Well, no, yeah, but I'm saying we moved a lot faster.
Yeah.
Definitely faster than you were accustomed to. But why is that? Why would you say that? Why do you think that way?
I think because you know what you want, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And because you know what you want, you're able to weed out what you don't want a lot faster. So whether you go on a couple dates or you know, you just know right away, you know, a lot quicker.
Yeah.
If this is somebody that you're just going to have fun with, or is this somebody that you can actually build with?
Sure. You said something earlier about how women are so in tune with their feelings and can express that and articulate that, and men struggle with that. And I think as an evolved man, one of the benefits of having this now mindset, but that's true. I do think you move differently, whether that's quicker or more. You're working smarter now in your 30s, not harder. You're not going to chase anymore. Rome said this actually. He's like, I'm not going to chase these women anymore, right? Like, you've put in too much work, too many hours punching the clock on becoming the best version of yourself. I'm not going to chase you.
Yeah.
I don't have time for that anymore. And that leads me to, as I have said in the past, somewhere on these airwaves, that there are certain women for certain things.
I really hate that.
I want to talk about that.
But okay, here we are.
Okay. I'm going to give you my thing, and you can't tell me there aren't certain men for certain things. But I'm going to give you the women. As an evolved man, I am very clear now on there is the wifey category. There's the let's just have a good time tonight category. Let's have a good time for the weekend category. And then she's got a lot of potential. Hopefully she lives up to it. I'm willing to put some time in to find out. To me, those are off the top of my head the types of women that I can see in like 10 minutes. Probably 5, actually. 5 minutes it takes me to figure this out. So when I met you, before I even met you, let me go back. The 5 minutes thing, before I even met you, we met online. I can tell based off of what you decide to display to the people, what type of woman you are. And that's pretty simple.
Yeah.
If you're in the club and you got these crop tops on and you're showing everything that God blessed you with, you're going to be a fun night, maybe a fun weekend. I'm not trying to bring you home to my mom. And in my case, I'm not trying to introduce you to my daughter. Now that I'm evolved. Because I made that mistake in the past. Anyways.
I was like.
Yeah. Woohoo. So that's what I mean by there's certain types of women for certain things. There's certain types of men for certain things.
I guess that's true in the sense, like, if I would have saw your Instagram where you were constantly out and about, I would, with where I was in my life at that moment, I would have been like,
if I was a club promoter, and I was always in these photos with all these women that I'm telling you about are a good time for a good night or a good weekend, are you going to be like, I did all this work for him? Probably not.
No. Yeah, I would have never even entertained it.
But that's my point. You can now sense quicker than ever, per your statement of you can identify things quicker, you move quicker when you're in your 30s. You can see people now,
of course,
and how they move and what direction they're headed in and what direction you're headed in. And you can spot them within 5 minutes to know it's not really worth my time. If I'm looking for marriage or I'm looking for some fun, he is my type right now. Where I'm at today, that works for me. So now,
but time can change people, because I know a lot of people that at one time they were probably the girl that.
Let's go back to that then.
Go ahead.
When you met me, when you did, you saw one photo of 500 and something, and you said,
"Not my husband." That is not my husband.
Now, the reason I bring that up is because little did you, I mean, maybe you knew I was a model, maybe you didn't, but that was actually a work photo. I wouldn't post that if I was just,
Oh.
But I'm a model.
Okay.
So if I wasn't a model, I wouldn't have posted that. I wouldn't be taking photos like that.
Yeah.
So you kind of judged a book by its cover. Okay. And you were saying, that's not my husband. You knew within 5 minutes
that wasn't who you are.
No, you didn't know that wasn't who I was.
Once we spoke.
Exactly.
However, I had that picture in the back of my mind where if we would have jumped on a phone call and we had a conversation and you would have more, started talking about different things that would have been more of a match with that photo, I wouldn't have continued talking to you.
Yeah.
But it was the complete opposite.
But you knew within 5 minutes.
Yes. But then why, just a few years prior, did you allow that?
I wasn't 30.
Oh, okay.
That click.
Ding, ding, ding.
So, like I said, there's a lot that happens when you're 30. And to your original point, things move quicker. Mm-hmm. And that's loaded. There's a lot of things we just explained as to why it moves quicker. Okay. So, I guess one last final note for men and women in their 30s. And this is what I want to say to you guys. Don't settle. If you're in your mid to late 30s and you're with your partner and you're just not really sure, you're not married yet, he hasn't proposed, or, you guys haven't even talked about, you haven't even thought maybe he's going to propose kind of thing. Don't settle. I know it's probably hard to think, I'm 34, I'm 37, I'm 38. I don't want to be out here single again. Like, how can I compete with these 28-year-olds? So on and so forth. Like that, just don't settle. And Jared actually taught me this. If you guys are from Enjoy the Podcast, you're gonna remember this. He's is really big on the 80-20 rule. And one thing he said recently, we had a caller call in, this girl, and she was going through some stuff with her guy, and he said, is 80% of your relationship good or bad? And she said bad. And he's like, oh,
there's your answer.
There's kind of your answer. And so what I also want to say is just ask yourself that question for sure, 80-20 rule. But then also understand this. If he's treating you bad, if she's treating you bad, people treat you how you allow them to treat you. And the reason why you're allowing them to treat you poorly or not to the level of what you deserve, not to the level that you feel loved, it's a better question of as to not just why is he doing this to me? It's him. The better question to ask yourself is, why am I allowing this? Is my self-worth where it needs to be? Is my value system where it needs to be? Do I love myself?
Or am I dating the person that's just better than my ex?
Woo! I thought I was the asshole. I guess is rubbing off. Tell him, babe. Shoot him straight, man. Shoot him straight.
I mean, just to bring it full circle with our episode.
But that's so good. Yeah. And unfortunately, I hope it doesn't take 3, 4, 6 years for that person to figure it out. Like, I mean, they're good, not great, but technically better than my ex. So I'll just, again, I'm 38. I'm not trying to be single. I want to have kids. What am I supposed to do? Start all over?
Yeah.
Yeah. Start all the way over.
Start over and write a list of what values are most important to you and look at that every day and remind yourself that you are deserving of each one of those values.
100%.
Yes.
Cool. Let's go into the first ever home series on the couch/chairs, rapid fire. Yeah, there's going to be some music there. Don't worry. Okay. Question number 1. And I guess this is for both of us. Do you think you could have been married in your 20s?
I think if I would have found the right person, if I was in the right headspace, yes.
What the hell kind of cop out? Of course anyone could. What kind of cop out answer is that?
Okay, ask me again.
Do you think you could have the six pack that you want? Yeah, I mean, if I ate right and hit my sit-ups more consistently, sure. What the hell? Come on, babe. More transparency.
I said yes.
Por favor.
Yes. I think I could have.
My answer is hell no. Hell no. Okay. Biggest lesson you learned in your 20s?
Biggest lesson I learned in my 20s. I don't know.
I'll go first. I think the biggest lesson I learned in my 20s, I needed to take more accountability. I needed to really take some hard looks in the mirror. I needed to sit with being uncomfortable with who I was. And you still don't have an answer.
I still don't.
The Jeopardy music's playing right now.
The biggest lesson. I wish I would have found myself a lot sooner.
Mm. And you said you found yourself late 20s?
Probably like I started like mid to late 20s, but I would say I was confident in my late 20s.
Okay. The biggest lesson you've learned so far in your 30s?
Sorry, you're gonna have to
I'll go
first.
The biggest lesson I've learned so far.
I'm not good with these. Like,
yeah, clearly. They're not even rapid. I told you these earlier. But anyways,
no, you didn't.
I definitely wrote them down with you.
Sorry.
See what I mean? The biggest lesson I have learned in my 30s so far is, for a man personally, how important it is to move in purpose, how important it is to find your purpose, and how important it is to actually take action in pursuing what your ultimate purpose is.
Mm-hmm. I would say the biggest lesson in my 30s is just the more developed you're able to be within yourself and your feelings, the easier you can move through life.
That's good. And I think that the easier it is to accept things, not take things so personally.
Let go of things, all the above.
Yeah, don't hold that grudge. Okay. What advice would you give to someone dating in their 30s? As a woman, and I'll give the man.
Keep your values at the forefront. And like I said earlier, don't allow attraction or the lack of compatibility, don't allow attraction to outweigh compatibility or substance in a person.
Yeah. Don't have your sunglasses on, have your reading glasses on, so to speak.
You go. That's perfect.
For men, my advice for any man in general, but especially in your 30s, because God help us if you're not here at this point, date with intention. Mm-hmm. Shout out to Rome. Date with intention. And also 1B, in case you haven't watched.
Define your relationship with the word relationship.
Yeah, that could be one. I was going to say, choose the woman who chooses you. Mm-hmm. Ladies, choose the man who chooses you.
Yes.
I tried to imitate that perfectly. If you haven't watched the Dating with Intentions episode with Mr. Rome Green Jr., highly recommend it. I'll put it in the show notes, and I will make sure it's right here at the end of this episode, so you can just click it. Anyways, but yeah, date with intention. Mm-hmm. Don't chase women. Choose the woman that chooses you. All right. Last and final question. Is your idea of a love story the same now in your 30s as it was in your 20s?
Yes, it is.
God.
But it is.
She loves love, man. She is like a hopeless romantic.
Wait, hear me out.
You can probably recite the Notebook.
Hear me out. It is. However, I am more aware as to the work that entails to get that story.
The work that you need to put in.
Yeah, the work that you need to put in on both ends to get that love story, because I do feel that it exists. And but growing up, we're so naturally drawn to that, and that's what I think everybody wants when they grow up, is that fairy tale life love story that they see in the movies, but it just doesn't appear. And that's what I think in my 20s I thought, it's just going to appear magically, and we're going to live happily ever after. Yeah. And it doesn't happen like that. So I think now I'm just more aware that it's not as, there's a lot of stuff that they left out in the movies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. For a reason. For me, my love story is definitely different now in my 30s as opposed to 20s. And I think mainly for me because in my 20s, I didn't think people who were in love fought. Mm-hmm. I didn't think they had rainy days, downs. I just thought it was all ups, and that was a hard reality for me in our relationship. And I almost jumped ship a couple times because I'm like, well, this is not meant to be then. Yeah. So I unfortunately had a false reality of what love looked like. And that is primarily to your point of Disney movies as a child, watching these terrible TV shows that sell this perfect love story and fairy tale, like the OC. You know what I mean? It wasn't necessarily the love story, but I just remember
I don't think I ever watched that.
You never watched the OC?
No.
Yeah, it's my half white in me. But yeah, the OC was not necessarily a love story, but it was just like La La Land. Anyways, but you get the point. All these TV shows, you know, and yeah, so it's definitely different. And to your point too, I now know, as Rome said, God, that was a very impactful episode for me. I'm sure it was for a lot of people, clearly. But something he said that was incredible. He said, and I thought about you right away because, as I've said before, when I think of Shay, the first word that comes to mind is love. And this is what Rome said. It's not love that keeps a relationship or a marriage going. It's growth. And with growth is being uncomfortable sometimes, taking that hard look in the mirror, becoming aware, accepting that you need to make some effort, some changes here, put in some effort, and then applying those changes and efforts. So it is growth, I believe, that ultimately continues the love story and continues
I agree.
the relationship.
I think that's why I used to always say too, it's in the moments that we are at indifferences is what is most important.
Right.
Everyone can love somebody on a good day, but can you love someone on a bad day? And I think that is where I used to struggle with you, because on a bad day, you wanted to jump ships. And I'm like, this is going to be great for our relationship. Yeah. So anybody can love somebody on a good day, but it's on the bad days is when your love is truly tested. And I think that if you can, in moments of having indifferences or out of adversity in your relationships, that's when you have the opportunity to grow. Yeah. And that's when you build that more trust with that person because you were able to grow. Yeah. So in some of our instances when we would be at indifferences, and then we would get through it, and then like a week later, you're like, all we do is fight, and I'm over this, or whatever you would say. And I'm like,
I didn't sign up for this.
Yeah, you used to say your famous line, I didn't sign up for this. And I'm like, it's these moments that is what builds us into the better version of ourselves. Yeah. Like we can't evolve as a couple without these moments. Yeah. So for me, I was always grateful for them. For them, you looked at it as like, this is not what I signed up for. Yeah.
And also, if I'm being honest, which I usually am on this show.
I sure hope so. You got so many listeners just putting all theirs.
Yeah, I'm always honest, which is why I think it does so well. But
it's a good opener though.
For me, I grew up very spoiled. I didn't really have to work for a lot. When I was grounded, can't even call it that, for a week, my mom would make it last for maybe 24 hours, maybe 2 days if she was really upset. And then I'd get my PlayStation back and I'd get to hang out with my friends, right? So I never had to put that much work into anything to receive what I wanted. So here I am in a relationship now, at this point, marriage. Yeah. And when it's time to put the work in, I mean, now it's a lot better, but early on it wasn't. And when it was time to put the work in, I was like, I don't have to. And I can still get what I want. Yeah. And that's back to, it's a whole nother episode, but it turns out, but what that leads to is like, I used to always think not just things were replaceable, but people were replaceable, which is a scary thing to not just think, but actually believe. I legit believed that people were replaceable. God.
But that's a mindset of somebody who's just trying to fill voids within himself with people. So of course you can just easily fill the void again. But at the end of the day, if you're not filling that hole yourself, you're never going to be happy. And you're always going to be constantly changing out what's filling the void. Yeah. Yeah. It makes me think of my friend Hannah, who messaged me on my birthday, and I hadn't talked to her in like 6 or 7 years. And we were exchanging voice notes back and forth, catching up. And one of the things she said was like out of nowhere. Yeah. She was like,
I hope you're not still cutting people off as easily as you did. And I was like, wow, that's right. I used to do that because I used to think everyone was replaceable. And again, including the women that I was with, sadly. But that's because I was always shown that. If I had a, outfit that I would consider just, it's old, Mom, I've worn it so many times, she'd buy me a new one. Everything was replaceable. So it was a vicious cycle. So anyways, no more rants, no more childhood, Justin, which I feel like is every episode. It is what it is. And that's it, love. Cue the music in the background, the send-off music. This was a great episode.
Thank you.
I hope it helps you guys out. If you are new to the show, welcome. I appreciate you guys for being here. If you are a day one, I very much so appreciate you. This is not scripted at all. I just want to take this time to acknowledge my audience because it has been, the last couple weeks have been insane. And I'm overwhelmed in the best way possible. I am extremely humbled and extremely grateful for these beautiful messages with kind words and sentiments that have been given to me per the show and per what I'm trying to create here and what I have created, what I'm trying to do with it. I do not take those messages for granted. I don't take you guys for granted. Hopefully that is on display when I do my IG lives, as I've been kind of going once a week here. I have found my calling. I have found my purpose. I have found what I personally believe is my just life mission, and that is to help people. I'm obsessed with this. I mean, maybe to a fault because it takes me away from my wife when I edit and I'm trying to come up with content ideas and episode topics and booking guests and so on and so forth. But I have to tell you guys, like, this feeling, I am fortunate enough to have said I've lived a very good life, but I've never felt anything like this before, ever. And it just is such a feeling of fulfillment. My heart is full. My mind is nonstop. 5 a.m. call time now is not even that bad because I'm excited to get into my office and create more. So without going on too much of a rant, I can't say thank you enough. I can't say how much I appreciate you guys without getting too emotional, because it just, like, ultimately, this is what I realized I've been searching for my entire life. So I hope you can feel this energy. I'm giving it right back to you guys. I love each and every one of you, and I don't know how this could ever get old. I don't care if I'm in my house or I'm in a $2 million studio. Like, you're gonna get the same version of me. I guarantee you. I promise you. So yeah. So again, if you're new, that is me in a nutshell. I also encourage you guys to watch the About Me video, which is the very first video, and it's on audio too. I recommend you watch it though. Me and Oz and Sarah put a lot into that video. And I just wanted you guys to know how I'm feeling today and then how I've been feeling the last couple of days. If you have not yet subscribed to YouTube, it's always so awkward for me to have these calls to action. It really is, but I know I technically need to. It'd be great if you can give this video a thumbs up, if you can subscribe, and if you can turn on your notifications, that would be great. Comment below on what you thought of this episode or any other episodes that have really helped bring value into your life. If you are listening on Apple or Spotify needs to get their stuff together. Apple, however, you can leave a 5-star rating and you can write a review, and that would mean the world to me. I've actually gotten a few more trickled in here. I'm over 100 ratings. The community of Who Can Relate is becoming, it has been quality, but now it's becoming quantity as well as quality. So that was a lot. I
feel like I needed to step out for that. I'm
sorry.
Like, oh my gosh,
honey,
I need some water.
Yeah, that was a lot. But I've been meaning to say that for a while, and I try not to make these too long as this is now, but
He's starting over, guys.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure I talk to my people really quick. So,
well, you talk to them.
Yeah, let me talk to you, honey, right now. Great job today.
Thank you,
honey.
It's never easy for me.
We almost didn't make this happen.
No.
I'm serious. we had a moment just now.
Yeah.
Shay's gonna cry.
No.
We had a very special moment
together.
Yeah, keep it together. Watch this. And yeah. So until next time, guys, which will be next week. Appreciate you. Love you.
Thank you for having me on your show.
Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for inviting me into your house.
Yeah.
Having me on your show.
I gotta get you out of here now before my wife comes home. See you next week, guys. Well,
hello and welcome.
Love you, love. How'd I do?
You did okay.
Okay.
You did great.
About to say, man.
I'm trying to downplay it.
Let's keep it all the way transparent.
What?
Your boy and the better half, we got into a disagreement right now. But also, we had a moment just now.
Yeah.
Shay's gonna cry.
No.
We had a very special moment.
Together.
Yeah, keep it together. Watch this. We had a very special moment. Shay has been asking me, basically begging me to be more empathetic, be more affectionate, compassionate. Even though I read books on compassion and empathy, it's like not natural for me to give love and affection.
But he does for our dog so naturally.
Yeah, and that's because he's not going to reject me.
I'm not going to reject you. But I'm asking you for it.
When you grow up the way I did, where you come from, where I come from,
you act like you grew up.
So, anyways, we had this moment, and last week we were in therapy, and Shay. Did you get emotional with the therapist about?
Yeah.
Okay.
Of course.
Why? You tell the story. Go ahead. I don't know why I'm talking.
I just think that you I don't know. You just don't show compassion.
Yeah, but what were you saying to the therapist?
I can't remember exactly.
Well, basically, she was just explaining like that's a big need for her, and if she's being honest, is not really sure if I can do that.
Yeah, I told the therapist that Justin's the first guy that I've ever been so close to, or the first person I've ever been so close to that I. Yeah.
Basically, so we can carry on with the episode. Shay was just concerned that I wouldn't be able to have that type of empathy and compassion that she needs and deserves, rightfully so. And
it's something I've always had from people that I have close in my life. Yeah. So not having it by someone so close to me it's hard.
Yeah. And so this was, last week's session, 8 days ago to be exact. And with all that transpired today with the events, I turned the compassion, empathy switch on. Took me a while to find it in my head and my heart, and I switched it on. And well, what'd you say? This you've known me for 4 years.
Yeah, and this is probably like the second time I felt like you had a authentic concern for my feelings.
Yeah.
Which is crazy. How does that make you feel? How did that feel to give yourself emotionally to somebody?
It felt good, but I did it because I knew you needed it. I didn't do it because I needed it.
But that's crazy though, because I feel naturally as a person of who I am.
Honey, you're cut from a different cloth. There's no way to...
but how can somebody have such a big heart and then not care?
We've talked about this. I have a hard time. The closer you are to me, I have a harder time being a harder time being compassionate and empathetic towards, because you would hurt me the most. Out of any of my friends, you would hurt me the most. So I have this like reserve tank. Unfortunately, it's something I'm working on, that I have to protect my heart. It sounds crazy, and I don't expect you to make sense of it, but It does in my head, unfortunately, but I'm working on it. The point of all this is, this is the second time in 4 years you have had your love tank filled in that department.
I felt loved, because
Great.
in those moments is when I feel loved.
Amazing. So you felt loved?
Yeah.
You feel loved now?
I mean, yeah, I felt
Good.
loved in that moment.
Yeah.
For sure. I felt like there was genuine concern.
There was. There was. And there's more to come, love.
I sure hope so, because that's going to
See,
be
there you go. There you go. See what I'm saying? There you go. There you go. You can't just celebrate the win. Okay, today we're going to be talking about